allow me to tell you, Hulk Hogan can do it. These guys that you think can't wrestle, I remember coming up here and, oh, Rock can't wrestle, Triple H can't wrestle, there's 5 moves, Stone Cold can't wrestle. Dude, they're the best. They're the best workers and they're the best wrestlers because they know how to do it. They just don't have to do it the way you think they should do it sometime.
What's going on, everybody? This is Dr. Chris Featherstone here for yet another episode of the Wrestling Outlaws. I'm here with two outlaws, ladies and gentlemen, two former world champions that are here to give you another sick show, just like every single week. The guy right there is flexing his helium flex biceps, Vince Russo, and we have someone. Remember Hollywood Squares?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hollywood Squares was the man. Oh, yes, there you go. He's once again showing his baseball card. He's pretty happy about the baseball card.
Hollywood Squares, bro. Charlie Weaver in the center square. The grandfather of the great David Arquette, Charlie Weaver.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yes, sir, Bob.
6 degrees to David Arquette, also a former world heavyweight champion.
Yes.
Thanks, man.
Yes, sir.
That's true.
Paul Lynn was a regular on Hollywood Squares. Peter Marshall was
Shadow Stevens. Remember Shadow Stevens?
That was the later, though. That was the later. Yeah. Oh, yeah. What about it, though? Where you going with this Hollywood Squares?
Yeah, center square, man. EC3.
EC3, well deserved. Yeah. Well deserved. I give you the center square, bro.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Obliged.
You are my man. Yes.
We'll be doing my neck stretches while we're in here. So
yes.
Very nice. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start off with shooting from the hip, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, indeed. Chris Jericho recently said that Hulk Hogan is a better worker than Ric Flair. So this is what he said. He said, "I will say this to the day and people will bag." Here's a clickbait. Hogan is a better worker than Flair for me. I always had amazing matches with Hogan because he knew exactly who he was as a babyface, as a heel, whatever. He was so great. He knew his audience. He didn't do anything. He didn't have to. It was one of my favorite times in my career. Yeah. Vince Russo was someone who worked hand in hand with Chris Jericho. What do you think about these comments of him putting Hogan over Flair as a better worker?
Let's also not forget that somebody worked hand in hand with Chris Jericho. Let's not forget somebody who was in a steel cage with Ric Flair. Let's not. Let's not.
He wanted to hit you too, didn't he?
This is what I have.
He won that match too, right?
Yes, of course. Come on, bro. This is what I have to say about.
Of course, I did,
bro. Hogan had it down to a science. Hogan knew exactly what he had to do and when he had to do it. Let's put it this way, bro. I don't know if anybody read a crowd or listened to a crowd better than Hogan. Seriously, bro. And it just seems to me like a Hogan match is a much more simpler, easier match. There was ingredients to this match. There was a recipe to a Hogan match, and bro, he never got off the recipe, and he never got off the recipe because he didn't have to. The recipe worked, bro. You don't change something that worked, and whether it was, babyface Hulk Hogan, whether it was NWO, bro, he had a recipe. I tend to feel like Flair's matches were, there was just more to them. They were longer matches. There was more bumps. They were a little bit more substance to Flair's matches. Hogan's matches were textbook. And it's kind of like what Jericho said, bro. I think Hogan could have went out there and had that match with anybody and gotten it over. So I think Hogan had just a really, really simple recipe that worked, that he stuck to, and made him the greatest of all time. What do you think, EC3?
Yeah, I mean, like you change a recipe that works. What do you get? You get new Coke. You get Pepsi Clear. Like, why would you change something that works? The only thing missing from original Coke is the actual Coke, if I may. But don't change what works. Hulk Hogan, great worker. Ric Flair, great worker. To judge, who cares? Hindsight's 2020. Opinions are what they are. But I often ask people coming up in the business, like, you're a good wrestler. I'm like, oh man, thanks. I'm like, but do you want to be a great worker? Because it has the intangibles, it has that ability to work with anybody, to have a crowd in the palm of your hands. And like for anybody that is this Russo, like who's never done anything athletic in their life, but they think they know the athleticism of professional wrestling, allow me to tell you, Hulk Hogan can do it. These guys that you think can't wrestle, I remember coming up here and, oh, Rock can't wrestle, Triple H can't wrestle, you know, there's 5 moves, Stone Cold can't wrestle. Dude, they're the best. They're the best workers and they're the best wrestlers because they know how to do it. They just don't have to do it the way you think they should do it sometime. Yeah. And you would need like proof positive of Hulk Hogan's ability to wrestle. Like you look back at his Japan matches, like he's doing everything. But why does he need to do it when it doesn't fit? I took a kid under my wing, Hero, and we were looking at Hulk Hogan and Shawn Michaels tagging, I think it was Backlash 2005, against Muhammad Hassan and Daivari. And like, I was telling people, watch Hogan in this match. If you don't think, like he was moving like he was 30 years old. He was doing everything he needed to do. He was in the right places at the right time. But like when he wanted to, he was doing all that. You know what I mean? Like going tit for tat. He can go. And I think the like greatest work Hogan ever did, when you watch this match as a fan, it's one of your favorite matches of all time. When you watch it back, it's kind of a trained professional, super genius like me. You can see things that you didn't notice as a fan. But if you watch WrestleMania 18 with Hogan and The Rock, Rock was like a multiple-time champion, a top guy, main event in WrestleManias. But like, watch how Hogan like teaches him how to work in that match. He's slowing him down. He's talking to him. He's keeping the pace. He's everywhere he needs to be. And like, Rock would rush and he's like, whoa, brother, slowing it down. And I think, the way he manipulated that crowd to have that reaction is a testament to one of the greatest workers of all time.
Yeah. I personally think, it's Jericho's, he's the one who worked with him. So, we can't dispute what he feels as far as the two people he worked with. Oh, no, you're wrong, Jericho. Flair's a better worker. Like, Jericho's worked with both of them, and that's his opinion. So that's not a matter of that.
A great worker.
Yeah. So that's not a matter of that.
You kind of got to give credence to the opinions of the people that know what they're doing, doing it at a very high level, and have done it with the participants. At the same time, that's his opinion. And am I going to say the same thing? No, because I don't rank shit. Sorry. I don't rank things. It just seems unnecessary. And then you can make the argument, well, Flair's probably a better wrestler. Okay, that's fine. He had more movement and he took more bumps and he had more of a flow to him than Hogan. But like, it doesn't matter who's a greater worker. That's one man's opinion, and he's entitled to it. And
I would argue
rules.
I would argue that Hogan's more marquee than Flair is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's more of a headline draw. I mean, Flair was talking about NWA territories, Flair was the guy. It was Flair versus blank, when it comes to that. But at the same time, that was more in the territories. And so, like, Flair did a really good job headlining the territories. But when you're thinking of someone like a Vince McMahon, WWE, more global conglomerate type of deal, even when Flair came back, which was a lot different than the early to mid 80s to early 90s, but Hogan was the guy, man. Hogan, I again, from a psychologist perspective, I got to give it to Hogan when it comes to worker. Wrestler, to me, Flair can run circles around Hogan, but when it comes to someone being a worker, as a fan looking at wrestling for almost 40 years, I got to give it to Hogan, because what I did like about Hogan, and I still think it's apples to oranges, in a sense, because Flair was more of the heel, taking all the bumps for the, and it just, and it's just you're making the baby look good. But Hogan, though, he's understanding the pulse of the crowd. He's understanding the pace of the crowd. He's understanding the pace. He's calling the pace. He has the mind for it. He's understanding, like he's basically drawing, a canvas. He has a blank canvas, and he's making it a work of art as the time goes. And then when the fan starts to go a little bit more, and then as soon as this starts to get a little feverish, boom, there goes the punches, and then he goes up, then the fan starts to get more feverish, and he punches again, and he fakes again, and then he punches again. All of a sudden, and he does the whole gimmick, and then he does the big boot, he does the big leg. That type of reaction from a, shaking, big boot, big leg, drawing that money over anybody in the world. I mean, you got to give it to him, man.
If we want to talk like physical, if we're going to rank the physicality of wrestling and maybe the stamina or the athleticism, take this from me, please, that to do the moves and have the near falls and the falsies and the accelerated high spots, and to have the ability to fire up after 10 minutes, 15 minutes with such gusto, like this is just as hard as, this. I swear, like stamina-wise, win-wise, it's athletics just as much. It's theatrics and athletics.
Sure.
Yeah.
I remember Hogan just coming back from becoming Hulk again, and the first time I was an extra with WWE. And the first thing I heard is like, Hogan had this reputation that he was like a backstage. So I'm walking backstage. It's my very first time being in the environment, and like, here comes Hulk Hogan. And I'm like, well, we'll see if he actually is one. And like, I made sure that whatever corridor he was walking through, I was right there. I was like, how you doing, sir? He's like, hey, brother, how are you? And I'm like, he's not everybody's a liar all the time. But then the second time, being backstage, being able to go out into the audience and be on the floor. And I think this was like the second or third appearance of Hulk, but it might have been the first in the States after he came back in Canada. You can't describe the feeling that happened when he came out and the reactions people had. Like, it's what made me do this, for better or worse.
Yeah, again, I still think it's apples to oranges. And kudos. I mean, hey, again, that's what Jericho feels. He worked with both of them. He felt that Hogan was a better worker. Could have, maybe if The Rock was having an interview with someone, maybe he said Flair was a better worker. So it goes to the discretion of the particular wrestler. And I don't think it's really worth a debate of who's the better worker, so to speak, because for Jericho, Hogan was the better worker. So, respect to him.
You know what? Apples, they're delicious. They have fructose in them. Oranges, they're great too. I like them both.
Indeed.
Sometimes I'll have them together. Sometimes I'll have them separate. No matter what, though, I enjoy them.
Very nice.
Very nice.